It's just like the Matrix depicted billions of fetuses, people with arrested development who've regressed from stress, stressful childhoods. Childhood is torture. If you study torture, what you see is childhood. The point of torture is to cause a human to regress to an infantile state so that they become compliant, so that they surrender like a fetus, surrender all control over their life, and they do whatever you want them to do. The brain can't develop under this kind of stress that we're all experiencing in childhood. Even though we may not think we were abused as children, if you look at the world, we're all being abused. There's a psychological war going on. A war for your mind. To control your mind. To enslave you. Coercive control. The way a pimp enslaves a prostitute. With shame, with fear, dominance. We're groomed all of our lives by the educational system, by our mothers, by our fathers, to be obedient, to suppress our instincts for freedom and autonomy, independence. We're taught to fear the world, making us dependent and infantilized. So that we'll work for corporations who rob the average American employee of 75% of the profits they generate. These CEO pimps that we all work for, they take $125,000 a year from the average worker. And they're just sitting on it. Trillions of dollars. That means the average American corporate employee that makes 40 grand a year would make 160 something grand a year. How different would your life be if you kept all the profit that you generated? In your 50-year career, the corporation will have kept $6 million of profit that you generated. That would have been yours What kind of life could you have lived with a 6-figure income? What kind of retirement would you have with $6 million in the bank? How could you have invested that money? You wouldn't have been working a shit job, that's for sure. And that's why they don't give it to you. You know why they don't solve homelessness? It's because they want to threaten you with it. If you don't show up to work every day, Mr. Anderson, if you choose not to show up to work on time, then you choose to find yourself out of a job. It's all your fault. You're in control of your life. You choose. Yeah. Capitalism is slavery. At least the kind of capitalism we have in the United States. Where do we go wrong? Why do we put up with this kind of abuse? It all starts with the mother. Oh, that's mother bashing. We don't want to have that conversation. Well, guess what? In this video, we're going to have that conversation. Narcissists can't admit fault. It's always somebody else's fault. They can do no wrong. They're always the victim, not the perpetrator. And who could accuse dear old mom? After all, she went through 9 months of hell and gave birth to you. How many hours of labor? She changed your diapers. And she parented you, not with love, but with hate. Not with unconditional acceptance and approval and support, but with conditional acceptance and approval. That's not love, that's hate. That's the opposite of love. If you served her needs, if you were convenient for her, you might see some love. You might see some affection, some attention. Otherwise, you were abandoned. You were neglected. And we were taught that this kind of abuse, this exploitation for narcissistic supply, this parentification where we existed to meet the needs of our caregiver instead of the other way around, this is love. When you grow up and you go out into the big world, love takes the form of money, conditional love. If you meet the conditions, you get the money. You have to conform. Sacrifice your needs for freedom, autonomy, independence, individuality. That's not love, because it's conditional. That is hate. The brain does not develop under these conditions of stress and emotional distress. We become infantile, regressed fetuses living in wombs. We don't explore, we don't adventure. We give up all of our right brain functions, freedom, curiosity, imagination. We become left brain dominant, narcissistic, OCPD, perfectionistic overcompensator, compliant surrenderer, the slave. We don't develop empathy. We don't develop emotional regulation. With the left brain dominant, our society is structured around envy, cruelty, sadism, dominance hierarchies, status, greed. Instead of compassion, empathy, pro-social emotions, problem solving, seeing the big picture. It's no wonder we're all caught up in infantile fantasies and delusions. You want to know what relationships are? Romantic relationships? Two infants at war, a psychological war of attrition over who's going to be the baby and who is going to be the caregiver. The same relationship with your mother when you were a baby. And guess what? She wins. Same relationship between a pimp and a prostitute. The same relationship between the totalitarian state and its citizens. The billionaires win. You get to serve them instead of the other way around.